Hello and welcome to episode 6 of Listen Up podcast, brought to you by Abacare Recovery. This evening we've got Marie McGuire, former Abacare therapist, here with us. Hi Marie.
Hi Eddie.
Thank you for coming on the show this week. Okay, and just before we move on to the podcast, I'm just asking any of our listeners, if you haven't already, could you please subscribe to our YouTube channel and stream Listen Up on all kind of major platforms, Spotify, iTunes, etc. And thanks for listening in. Okay, I'm just going to introduce Marie and give her a wee bit of background on Marie's career. So Marie started out in social work in Glasgow, and through that time she trained as a counsellor and moved on to specialise in CBT therapy. And then you moved on to Miami, where you specialised in MDF therapy, and we can hear a wee bit about what that is throughout the show. And then you made the choice to move into addiction in various different roles. And for the past 14 years, you spent that with ourselves at Abacare. And sadly for us, you retired in March this year. And we can hear a wee bit how that's going for you as well. How does that sound, Marie?
Perfect.
Okay. Thank you so much for coming on, Marie. You're someone who I really admire when I worked with you in Abacare, and for the help that you gave so many people through there. And as the aftercare manager at Abacare, your name still comes up so often for people whose lives have really changed, you know, throughout the time, you know, and they ask about you a lot, and you're a really well respected person for the work you do with people. So I just want to thank you for that, and having the privilege of having worked with you over the last kind of 10 years and stuff.
Oh, thanks so much, Eddie. That's really sweet. And it means a lot, you know, being affirmed like that really counts.
Yeah.
You know, I like to practice what I preach. You know, I'm often hearing myself saying to people, you need to learn how to affirm yourself, to validate your own ideas. And so, and to just say thank you when somebody compliments you. But when something like that happens, I realise how difficult it is. It's okay asking that of people, but that's really, actually when you ask it of yourself, you realise that how moving it is to hear it and to feel it.
Yeah.
So thank you very much.
No, but that it's just something that's so regular, and I'm so used to that as well, you know, because obviously you were at Abacare 14 years. I've been there coming up in 10 years.
Wow.
You know, and we work with a lot of people, don't we? We see a lot of people come through in different conditions and go on to make massive changes in their lives, you know, and sometimes it's people maybe from a lot of years ago, you know, that comes back or they just drop in, you know, and a lot of the time your name's been there. And the work you've done and the amount of time you were there as well. So it's really nice to hear, and it's nice to catch up with you here tonight as well, and if you're agreeing to come on here, because I don't think this is usually your kind of platform,
Gosh, no.
is it?
It's quite daunting.
It is.
You know.
It is.
Yeah, put me in a group and let me wear my therapist hat, and you know, I'm okay.
I'm going to do a bit of therapy on you. What do you think that is, Marie, that you
Well,
feel? What's the difference?
I know what it is. It's like, you know, that idea that you're exposed.
Mm-hmm.
And exposing yourself, and then the next bit is the fear of judgment.
Yeah.
You know, what are people going to think? What if I say something wrong? What if I say something right? Oh my God. You know, do I have to clarify that? So the overthinking shows up. So it's imposter syndrome. You know, why am I here? And why did I agree to do this way? You know, but it's that. It's absolutely that. It's different for everybody, but it shows up when we're anxious.
So that's what I was going to ask you. I was like, do you think everybody experiences that in different situations?
I don't think everybody has imposter syndrome, or everybody has anxiety, but without a level of anxiety, we wouldn't be able to get out of bed in the morning. You know, we need to know if the lion's there and it's going to eat us. You know, we need to know that how to respond to that, and that's what fight, flight, freeze is about, isn't it? Yeah. It's like, so we need to understand, you know, if we don't check before we cross the road, then you're at the risk of being knocked down. So it's that type of anxiety, but just watching out is really healthy. Whereas this anxiety that I'm experiencing now is much more about fear of failure.
Yeah.
At the very core, that's what it's about. My negative core belief is absolutely that. It's the fear of failure. I don't like getting things wrong. I understand that I do, but it doesn't mean I like it. I acknowledge it. I'm working on embracing it.
No, and that is so interesting, because that will kind of take us on, because that's insight, isn't it? What you're sharing there is insight, self-awareness.
Absolutely.
And I gave you a wee bit of an introduction earlier, so take us back to when you started in social work. What did that look like?
I mean, for a career that lasted 31 years in social work, it began with me cleaning a kitchen in a children's home. I was a young mother, and my husband and I were really young, 17 and 18. And all of a sudden we have this wee baby, and I had a job, but I couldn't go back to that job because it wasn't compatible with looking after a wee baby and family life. So there was a children's home built like a 7-minute walk from where I lived. And I tapped the door one day and says, do you have jobs? And I'm like, well, yeah, but we use application forms. Anyway, the head of the home said to me, I'll never forget her actually, and she says to me, I can give you a form, because in those days you didn't have to go through all the bureaucratic systems that are obviously in place for all the right reasons now. So anyway, that's what I did. I used to go in at 4 o'clock. Tam would come home from work, as my ex-husband, and he would come home from work and I would go to work. And I was there. I can't even remember how long I worked for, 2 or 3 hours. But it was money that was much needed. And for there, she saw something in me. Her name was Mrs. McCall. And I was more interested. I used to spend an hour cleaning and then 2 hours working with the kids. I would volunteer to take kids to the brownies and all that kind of stuff. Oh, is there MD free to take? But I'd go, I'll do it. See if you can't. If you don't have anyone, I'll do it. So I suppose that keenness and interest in being with people and working with people was always around, since, it goes way back to then. And so I got a job as a house parent, it used to be called.
Okay.
Working in a children's home, part-time. And my career grew from there. And then I became a senior, and, it was I progressed through social work. And I'm quite loyal, so I stay places quite, for long periods of time. I didn't have any real want to do something different. I mean, I wanted to always improve.
Yeah.
And then I started learning. And that became my thing. I liked it. I was like a wee sponge. Would tell me about that. I knew nothing about child development, or, I knew how to look after my own baby, kind of, with my help from my mum and dad, but I didn't really understand the theory of human development. And that was one of the first courses I did. Just simply that, a module on human development. And that led to what became an HNC, because then it wasn't called an HNC.
Yeah.
And I went to college and did that, all supported by social work. So they see it as continuous professional development, and they really invested in you back then. Well, I felt invested in. And I went through the ranks in children's homes. And then I applied for a job in something that was new as well, and it's called aftercare. It's called Throughcare. So it was about working with children, young people who were leaving care, and helping them live an independent life. setting up services that weren't, that didn't demand that young people at 16 or 17 went straight into their own flat and knew how to live independently.
Yeah.
It was, so other services were getting built up, family support services. So families in the community that would offer a bit like foster care for older kids.
Okay.
And that was really exciting times because that was developmental. That was developing services and investing in people and really getting good feedback that motivated you to do more.
That's what I was going to ask you there. Like, how successful was that?
Yeah,
at that
well, it still
time?
exists. That's
maintained.
That's what matters.
Yeah.
It exists in a different forum, but it still exists,
Mm.
and it brought the needs of kids leaving care to the forefront. And it was just amazing. We were a really small team of 4 and our lead, David, was brilliant. So can I tell you a wee story about a kid in care? So you have formal meetings with children and when you're creating a care plan, and so we would be introduced as people that would get to know the young person before they left care. So he'll forgive me for saying, if he ever sees this, he'll forgive me for telling, because we often laugh about it. But he's very, very, and he's English, and his rite to passage was to rebel against the lack of free space for hiking and walking. And I was like, oh, my rite of passage was rebelling because girls couldn't wear trousers to school. And so just that, the same but very different.
Yeah.
And so we're at a child review one day, and this boy said, obviously for Glasgow, and David saying, well, this and that, and being very, amenable and optimistic. And this boy, 16 or something, he goes, aye, it's all right for you, you've got a boathouse. And David says, I do not. I don't know who told you that. I don't live anywhere near the water. It's like, that summed it up.
Yeah.
That summed the team up. David did. But he's, because he just didn't get he really thought he was saying he had a house that, it was a canal boat or something. Yeah. So we had lots of fun and we did a lot of amazing stuff with young people. We had great ideas to develop them. And
see back then, Mary, kind of hindsight, what you went on to kind of study and learn and stuff like that. What was the main issues you were seeing with kids then?
Well, the saddest thing, it's the same stuff that we see now. It's that kids who feel abandoned, who fear abandonment, who respond and react against the system, who don't have a sense of belonging and are fighting for that. But the way they use their voice is perhaps not conducive to them getting their needs met. And of course, then, and addiction has always been around, as a strategy for young people to just cope. So they're teenagers. So teenage angst, all the grown, all the stuff that as you grow that can be wounding and painful, and that all existed for all of us.
Yeah.
But add that layer of being raised by a counsel.
Yeah.
And no, sense of identity, and that's not for everybody. I'm generalising here. There's a lot of young people, and I hope some of them are listening to this and go, I was one of those young people who made it.
Yeah.
I'm a really successful individual, and I'm sure there's lots and lots of them out there. But it wasn't easy. It wasn't easy for them.
What I'm just trying to get a wee picture of is these kind of unhealthy trends. It's continually been there, for over kind of years or decades even,
Absolutely.
isn't it? And kind of with the emphasis on kind of, we'll move on to speak about kind of addiction and stuff, but round about Scotland, Glasgow, West Coast of Scotland, our relationship with substance use, whether that's alcohol, whether that's drugs, why is that so different? You know, what's so different in our experience when we grow up here? What's so different for a country, a couple of...
I know, I don't know the answer to that. I don't know if it is so different. I don't know. I think that our reliance on alcohol, and back then it was absolutely, you know, the majority of the problems were alcohol or dope, weeds. No, I'm not saying other drugs weren't around, but it tended to be for the masses. I would have said it was much more. We had an alcohol issue, and that remains. You know, it remains to be that, you know, although the light gets shone on the drug deaths every year, you know, quadruple that more for the alcohol related deaths, and we all know that, but it's not. The light's not shining it in the same way. Why
do you think that is as well? Because next guest that I've got on is from Alcohol Focus. We do a lot of kind of study into that, and you're right. We put a lot of emphasis on my drug death levels. That's going to come out starting next week again. Not looking great again. But alcohol is far more and far more damaging to society, costs and stuff. And obviously, there's a difference because one is legal. And one isn't, you know, but it's like, why do we differentiate between two?
Well, it generally generates a lot of income.
Businesses, isn't it?
Businesses, you know, rely on it. Culturally, we're dependent. I think, you know, we have a cultural dependency on the idea that you have to be a certain way to be a funny person or a nice person or an amenable person or somebody you want to be around. I think we always have had an attitude of, if I'm not enough, then here's something that changes me. It's the magic, isn't it? That people go, here's the magic that makes me feel acceptable. So there's a lot of reliance and dependency from an emotional point of view, and that's never changed. I mean, whether you're 16 or 17 or 60 or 70, that reliance, that strategy for coping is alive and well.
So I'm asking you at this point just because obviously working with young people, you know, and certainly for me, kind of working in the kind of recovery field, and, you know, sometimes we feel as if we're getting people at the end of the road when everything's already broke. Then we're trying to work our way backwards, you know, and which is very productive, and people can move on to make necessary changes and stuff. But there's something happening early, isn't there? Early stages,
and there's been a lot of services developed about early intervention, that haven't been, for whatever reason, and I don't know the answer to that, but haven't been maintainable or sustainable. And I don't know if that's because, you know, they become unattractive because we used to talk about soft outcomes and the importance of them, you know, that, but now we look at much more about hard outcomes. How many are employed? How many are out of the prison system? How many? It's that quantifying a problem. And quantifying a cure. And actually the soft outcomes are what I believe are lifelong changes. I think that's one of the reasons I wanted to be a therapist. It's like, you know, there's got to be more than superficial change. There's got to be another way. And I didn't know that way, but working with young people really gave me the opportunity to understand how hard, because even, I was young, you know, I was like, I don't know, 20 something. So I'm a young woman, but I'm with these younger people who, like, oh my God, I remember what that was like. And knowing that, you know, rather than condemn them for what they were doing, really I had this knack to say, so tell me how that works for you. You know, wasn't it? It's not a big sophisticated therapeutic question, but I was working with people in ways where there was no judgment. I mean, that sounds really because we judge all the time, but it was like, well, you know, we're not going to beat them out of this or help them think their way out of this. We need to understand it. And I'm with the school of people who believe that for a lot of people, if not most, it's symptomatic of other things.
Yeah.
So addiction, it becomes an addiction. It starts as a way of feeling different, or feeling better, or belonging, doing what your mates are doing, whatever it might be, that fitting in thing. It might start there. And unfortunately, we don't really understand why some people it sticks with and others it didn't. And I had a good go at it. It never stuck with me. I was just like,
yeah.
you know. So it's not that I was any I was any better than them or better educated or I had different parenting. It was much more about that coping strategy didn't work for me. I created others.
Yeah.
And I think that's the human condition.
Totally.
Unfortunately, when you find alcohol or other drugs at whatever age and you become reliant on it, that gives me something I can't get anywhere else.
Yeah.
There the journey begins.
Mm-hmm.
And it's and we were seeing that at that time with some of these young people, not all, but yeah, it was around, you know. And that had an impact on their living environment, who they live with, how acceptable they were to, you know, to supported living or whatever it might be. Yeah. So the knock-on effect to that was as it is now. You know, people aren't homeless by choice.
Yeah, totally. Yeah, I think it's really important what you said there, and it kind of gives me an insight when you shared that there, Marie, regarding that. Yeah, quite young, early 20s, you know, and you're bringing that care into care system.
Aye.
Because myself and Liam were at something, it was a couple of months ago, and it was about speaking about the lack of care in the care system, you know, and it's something so obvious, isn't it? But sometimes you forget when you get caught up in paperwork, you get caught up in everything. It's like, where is the care, you know? And I think kind of knowing a lot about your kind of career and how you were in practice and stuff like that, you know, really kind of puts the jigsaw together for me, you know, that you were at that place as a young woman, you know, maybe where somebody would still be learning the ropes at that stage, wasn't it?
Absolutely. Yeah. Learning how to live, never mind learning the ropes of how to be a substitute carer to somebody or a mentor, or, you know. But you said something, Eddie, and I thought that's really key. How can people care when they've not been cared for? And we assume that everybody that's in the helping profession have been cared for, have had their needs met, and it's not true. It's not true. It's just not true. But we need to act as though that's true, because services need to thrive, but we need people in the services to thrive. And those people who are offering any service to another person, it needs to be able to pass that on. But it doesn't mean you need to be perfect and untraumatized, or it's not that. It's much more about, do you know how to care?
Totally, and that kind of outshines all the other aspects of
nothing else really
roles,
matters, does it, when you think about it?
Totally. So you started to study during this point?
I'd be lying if I could tell you what job I was in at the time, but after doing that module in human development, I was just hooked, and I wanted to do psychology, but with a young family, I had to work, and I couldn't just leave and go to uni, and I didn't have the qualifications anyway to get into uni then. But I was really lucky in my career, and I've always been, I've been really generous. I might get a wee bit emotional here.
That's all right.
People have been really generous with me in terms of seeing something in me that maybe I couldn't see. I don't know if I would speak up, you know, for a hopeful position, but there were always people around my career who would say yes to me if I asked things. And I remember saying, can I go and do that course? I can't remember where I was working. And it was I can't remember, because it was a challenge anyway, because people who were doing it were people who were planning to do a social work course.
Okay.
And I think that it's now the HNC, because it was
Mhm.
exactly the same course as when they introduced the HNC. I'm like, that's exactly what I'd done. So I did that, and that gave me a kind of wider interest in the world, and I had an opportunity come up that something else asked, could I do that? And it was a job as a visiting research fellow.
Okay.
I couldn't spell research, but I was really interested in this idea of action and stuff, because working with young people, it's like we would action something and then understand it. So we would have a hypothesis
Mhm.
that if we do that, it will result in this. And that's what they were looking for, so it was to work with the research department in Strathclyde Uni, but it was a secondment. So
Uh-huh.
I was still being
Yeah.
employed by social work, but paid jointly by them. And it was amazing because I was good at it.
Right.
And I learned how to do a bit of research, because there was two of us, one guy who at that point was a social worker, Nick, and we were allocated a researcher who showed us how to do some research for ourselves, so we were actioning the ideas and collating the data and analysing what we were doing and why that had that particular impact on these
Yeah.
people. So that was just, it was
Mhm.
just such an opportunity. And that widened my view to, actually there's more. There's more
Yeah.
out there. And when I come back to my substantive post after that, it was a year, it was a long time.
Okay.
And that was really successful too, because that resulted in other services being built,
Yeah.
which were aligned with Throughcare services. So that felt really important. And then there was a job advertised. I moved into addiction,
Okay.
and I can't remember why. I can't remember why I went for a new job. It wasn't like I needed to work in addiction or I wanted to work in addiction. Previous to that, my experience of addiction was it wasn't a public service.
Yeah.
Everything was like third sector, community based projects where people were doing really well. But it wasn't aligned with public services. Social work weren't involved.
Right.
And but the minute they were, I was like, no, that's interesting. And this job came up, and it was it was going to be a short term post. It was developing services for specifically for women who were funding a drug addiction, and in a variety of ways. One
Okay.
being by working the streets,
Okay.
a escort and that.
Mm.
And it was a sole post, and again it shone for me because it was about developing something. It was finding stuff out, so researching. It was
Mhm.
finding things out and then looking for solutions. So that was another really successful outcome, because many services have grown for that. We put in, I'm saying we, but actually it was me. We put in a proposal for money for it's government money. Sorry, my mind's away and I can't remember.
That's right.
It wasn't Scottish Enterprise maybe,
Mhm.
and it got £750,000.
Wow.
I mean, that's my claim to fame.
Yeah.
And I was so proud of the women who had partaken in the development of services of that service, and through their experiences and their ability to address their addiction issues and make significant changes in their life, and help us understand the complexities of that. It's not just stopping taking drugs. Well,
Yeah.
what about where you live? What about the environment? What about the relationships you've got? When you last at your doctor?
Mhm.
All of that stuff that can be not prioritised when, every day it's just about, right, how do I get the next tenner for that bag?
Yeah.
How do I get through this day? So it was really amazing, because then what started happening was places like the Sandyford for women's health were involved, and there was a service at the bottom of Argyll Street. This went out of my mind. That worked with women, very specifically women who worked the streets.
Okay.
And they came on board in a way that expanded there.
Yeah.
So they were a shh service, and then they became actually these
out in the
this
open.
service is amazing. You know, it's saving lives actually.
Yeah.
And then housing got involved. So they were kind of creating this, right? How do we address the revolving door of women being in and out of prison for petty crime, drug related? So projects were developed in response to that. So I'm not saying that I was responsible for all of that, but what I'm saying is that seed it actually, maybe if you include people, it's more dynamic than just knowing there's a problem. Does that make sense?
Totally. And for maybe, I know it wasn't your first introduction to addiction, probably where it was addiction focused initially.
But it was,
How did you take to that kind of line of work?
I suppose the first thing I learned is people are people are people.
Yeah.
And one of my mantras, and it still is, I really get a buzz when somebody says, when they get the penny drops and they stop defining themselves only as an addict.
Yeah.
And it's that. So I'm an addict and I am also. And I love that. I love that. You know, I'm this and I'm that, and you can wear as many labels as you like. But what that says to me, you know, if you say I'm an addict, I'm a woman, I'm a mother, I'm a worker, you know, I'm a kind person, you maybe got into character traits. It's that ability to redefine themselves. And for me that's key as well. It's central to a lot of change.
Yeah.
And sustained change.
So how long did you stay in that kind of line?
So that was a short-term post. Okay. That was a post that was set up for a purpose. It was a find out post, you know. It was that investigating, what can we do with this? And the evolution of it was just incredible. Yeah. And all credit to social work for that too. I mean, they don't get a lot of good reports, but actually they do a lot of really good work. Or they used to do a lot of really good work. I can't speak for now. I don't know.
Yeah.
And when that post concluded, I stayed in addiction, and I was in the community addiction in North East of Glasgow.
Okay.
And actually, that's where I worked out of there. And when I took up the other post, and
was that up at Easter House at the time?
No, Parkhead.
Parkhead.
Yeah. I think North East just get, you know, it's split now.
It's changed.
But I was in Parkhead.
Yeah.
And I really I think we really made a difference. You know, and I was working with people who were believers.
Yeah.
You know, I don't know if I should mention people or not, but Jim McBride was the lead in that, and I really appreciated his ethos, which was, you know, these are people who deserve a service. And it's that simple approach that is respectful, and it carries pure compassion. You know, it's no us and them. It's no, oh God, we're working with these people. It's like, we just believed we could make a difference. And I think when you believe you can make a difference, you're more likely to make a difference.
Yeah. Well, it's funny that you kind of picked that up there, isn't it? And maybe going back to what we were speaking about and about care in the care field and stuff like that. For a service ethos, it can be that simple as somebody who's saying, which people expect that all services are saying, you know, but somewhere along the line over the years, all that stuff got lost, didn't it? You know, and kind of maybe that wasn't priority and stuff. And,
exactly.
I've seen a lot of kind of fallout from that as well over the time. So addiction, so it wasn't really a choice you went into addictions.
No, listen,
it was more
a lot of
you
things
went
I
into
kind of fell
addictions.
into, or I just fancied and says, can I do that? And people were really supportive of me. But what did happen next posts came up. Again, new posts. So it was it's that developmental kind of strategic interest, you know, here's new ideas, new ways of working. And it was like full circle, and it was back to young people's services, early intervention for young people, but via community addiction services.
Okay.
So they had the access to medical services and everything, you know. And at that point we weren't an integrated team. And I got a post, and I was based in south of the city. And I was the lead in that small team, and we developed that team. And it always remained a small team, but we had a family support worker, young persons workers, and myself.
Okay.
And we made a difference. I mean, I can say that
Seems
with
to
great
be a
pride.
pattern here, Marie.
Well, it does,
Yeah,
and
no,
it
totally.
just, and I think that the freedom to be able to say, like, this works, let's do more of that. I'm not sure about this, that this is working. Is it us? Is it the system? Can we do something different that might be more effective? And we had rain to do that. You know, we had we were really spreading our wings. And it feels really good when you're doing that. It feels dynamic and productive. And that's where I was until, and during that, way before that, I'd done counselling.
Yeah.
And, but during that period, I saw, I read some stuff about multidimensional family therapy, and who are based in Miami. And it's much more an American. At that time there was, I mean, I don't know if it exists, and I don't think there's any teams or anything, but I'm sure there are practitioners. But it was really interesting because I thought, oh, this is a therapeutic approach to what we're doing. It kind of brings that therapy into addiction.
Okay.
And the idea, the practice in multidimensional family therapy is that the young person in the home may well be the person that's struggling with addiction or dependency. But it's a family disease.
Okay.
So if we work with mum, how does that impact on Charlie? And if we work with Charlie, how does that impact on his dad or his siblings? It's a visionary, I think. Well, for me it was. It just felt like, right, this is what we need to be doing. So I was invited on to that. Before that, I had done CBT, supported by social work.
Okay.
And can I tell you how that happened?
Yeah, of course.
So I go to South, that I was telling you, into that new post. And of course it's a development post, so there's no team or anything. There's me, and I've got to develop the service and the not so much the ethos of it, but to establish it in the community and the team community, the community addiction team, but also the wider community, the south of the city. So I'm there, I don't know, 4 or 5 days, maybe on my 6th day or something. And the manager comes out and goes, oh, for goodness sake, such and such is supposed to be on a course, and you know, we can't waste money doing that. I think Pearson was also. And I says, I'll go. Do you want me to go? Because I wasn't doing an awful lot.
Yeah.
And she's like, oh, would you, Marie? So, and it was a 3-day course.
Okay.
And I felt absolutely head over heels. I was like, I get this model. This model gets me.
Yeah.
I'm going to study this.
Amazing.
So I asked for some support to be funded through it. Addiction services were already involved with the Centre of Therapy. You know, that negotiating, they were trying to get it into the communities, into social work. Obviously they're looking for students.
Yeah.
So it was a win-win situation. So there you are, you know, synchronicity.
I know, totally.
There are no coincidence.
This is blowing me away, because that came, I keep taking it back to that young 17-year-old chap in the door, Mary. You
Absolutely.
know, and knowing where you ended up and stuff like that, you know. So it's
we no idea where it was going to go.
Yeah.
Thank goodness. I'd have been scared if I had known. So did a piece of work there, went and studied in Miami, and that was brilliant. That was really good. That was very telling. It's a very different model. American families are very different.
Yeah.
And then we were privileged that the professors from Miami University came to Glasgow and they trained us to train other people in multidimensional family therapy, but to supervise them.
Okay.
So what an opportunity.
Yeah, totally.
It's just amazing,
Yeah.
you know.
So
There's me, you know, as you say, that Sim Joy
Aye,
champing the door
yeah.
saying, can I have a job? Are you just looking for anybody?
So see that, Mary, I just find it really intriguing. So what was the kind of outcomes of that? What would you say, like, regarding that kind of delivering that kind of therapy to families and stuff?
That was really hard because that was research based. That wasn't an adopted service. That wasn't
Okay.
right, we now operate like that. That was, let's see if that'll work for us.
Yeah.
Very time consuming, you know, for a man management point of view, you know, if you've got one family, you could have one family with 6 people, or you could have
Yeah.
one family with 12 people,
Mhm.
and you need to work with everybody. So it's not conducive to. It's probably not financially viable.
Yeah.
You know
totally.
that, and you know when you because one worker could just have one family.
Right.
But it was amazing. Well, that's when I really understood resistance.
Mm.
I learned a lot about that, about older adults being resistant to it having anything to do with them. It was the kids that were the problem.
Yeah.
And it's got nothing to do with me, you know, and saying, well, that's not the point of the exercise. It's about,
Yeah.
you know, well, how are you doing? And how are you coping with that? And what's your parenting skills? And how are you parented? And taking that therapeutic approach, that curious approach to people. And that, you know, that's scary, you know, because it's your kid that's got the problem. You're asking me about me and
Yeah.
how I'm interacting with other members of my family. And but it was, and you know, again, it was really interesting. It was,
Mhm.
it raised as many questions as it did solutions, but it wasn't adopted by Glasgow City Council as a way forward,
Yeah.
and completely understandable why.
Probably due to the demand, time, and stuff like that. But it's still something, what you're speaking about there, it's still something we see a lot of, isn't it? Kind of maybe in the kind of residential rehab or any kind of addiction field, regarding that kind of dynamic in the family and resistance of family members. And sometimes it might not be resistance. Sometimes it's like, this is not my problem, you know,
Absolutely.
and stuff, and kind of introducing family support. But when you do get people engaging, then you really get somewhere, don't you? You know.
My experience has been that when people find, and when I say people, I mean parents,
Mm-hmm.
when they stop trying to fix it and address it through compassion, everything changes.
Yeah.
It's not about accepting and saying it's okay. It's the opposite of that. It's saying why. How can I help you with that? And the parents are saying that,
Yeah.
which is so much more useful to the young person than it is for some person that works in social work coming to do that.
Mm-hmm.
But that's a journey. That's an individual journey for people. You know, not everybody can just, you know, step into compassionate mind.
There's so many hurdles in that, isn't there? Because of
Yeah.
behaviours, because of, you know, there's so much there.
You know, they were raised and how were they,
Yeah.
it's back to that, how were they cared for?
Yeah.
You know, just because you've got kids doesn't mean to say that, you know how to parent. Remember I've learned a lot of lessons for people, and somebody called Moira, I hope she hears this. I've just remembered she died.
Oh, you're right.
I'm good. I am good. I'm okay. No,
Right.
she deserves
Aye.
to be honoured by a tear. And she was a child in care, and she became a young mother, and she was part of the aftercare system. And she's had a baby, and her question to me was, how do I know how to parent when I've never been parented? And like somebody slapped me in the face that day, because I was like, that is the best question. How do you know how to do something if you've not experienced it or you can't even imagine it.
Yeah.
And that those kind of statements that people would give you, and you go, of course not. She went on to teach, because it wasn't a post, it wasn't a paid post, but she taught new social workers about what it was like to be a kid in care, what it was like to not be parented in a way that was loving and caring, and well, it just wasn't good enough. So there was a big unmet need, and she was phenomenal.
Yeah, that's amazing,
isn't it?
Yeah, no,
isn't
totally.
it? So I mean, I'm sitting here feeling really blessed to have met all these people and been given these opportunities. I then retired for social work, and I was far too young to retire, but there was an opportunity and I took it. And I decided I'd already had a small practice, tiny wee practice, because you need it for your registration and stuff. And so I was working privately, predominantly doing CBT, and I thought, I'm going to take this leap of faith. Well, I retired for about 3 months, and then I became, I was still in my pajamas at 3 in the afternoon. Like, right, something's got to go here. So I started my own practice, and it just thrived. And a colleague of mine, David, was working at Abacare. And I say a colleague of mine, but actually he was a student of mine.
Okay.
And because another part of my, maybe I'm a bit of a workaholic as well. Another part of my journey was that the course that I did, the CBT course that I completed, I then delivered that course. I facilitated that course for a lot of years, alongside much more able colleagues than me. But anyway, I threw myself off there. As I seen before that.
No, you were saying you're moving into Abacare with David.
Aye. So David then says to me, he's working in Abacare, and he says, would you be interested in, I know, and I was like, no, I don't want to work for any organisation, I really want to build this practice. And so anyway, long story. So I negotiated that with Abacare, that it was a self-employed post, and that felt really good.
Yeah.
And I just had the best time. So I've always done groups. We would always try and give young people or families the opportunity to connect with others. And I really believe that if you put human beings in a group, phenomenal things happen.
Totally.
And I'm already, I've got a therapeutic head. Now I'm like, right, how do we reach the masses? How do we reach more than, families, young people, older people, blah, blah, blah. And that all happened in Abacare, I learned that addiction doesn't select by age. It doesn't select by how much money you have or where you live, and it doesn't select by how you've been parented either.
Yeah.
So I met just a variety of people that I never expected to meet. And 14 years later, I was still there as the lead therapist. And God, it was a journey. It was such a journey.
Speak a wee bit about that, Marie, if you could. So you spoke there about that kind of change, and now your mindset is in the kind of therapeutic way.
Yeah.
What was that? How would you describe that?
I think it was more about noticing what could be done.
Okay.
That way, just reaching people in a different way and coming from a place. That realising that people needed to be treated with care and love and attention and respect and compassion. And I was like, well, that's surely what we need to do in whatever services there are. It's got to be an improvement if we're coming for that place. And in Abacare and groups, that worked. That really worked. That people finding self-compassion, reaching in and really literally feeling their heart some days. What's it look like? What colour is it? And loving that exploratory work that was maybe unconventional to them, people sitting in taking care of their heart,
Mhm.
you know, in their imagined world, but in the here and now, and seeing that and noticing what it needed. I mean, that's amazing, you know. So Abbey Care allowed me to really experiment with my practice, you know, to see the person and not the addiction.
Totally.
And then, but respect the addiction, because
Mhm.
how they're in rehab and
Yeah.
you know, this for some it was all or nothing. You know, some people would come in saying, "I'm done. You know, I've gave up." And, well, why are you here? Well, because I want my mammy to feel better. You
Yeah.
know, or other people felt coerced to come in, and it's interesting because they would often struggle a bit more
Mhm.
until, you know, they recognise, well, you might have been coerced to arrive here in this rehabilitation unit, but, you know, I would often say to them, "Who's holding you on that chair?
Yeah.
Who's keeping you there?" And they go,
Yeah.
"Oh, why are you doing that?
Yeah.
Why are you doing?" And then they could find, oh, because maybe there's a tiny wee part of me that cares about me.
Yeah.
So, I mean, what's not to love about that?
I think it's important as well for any kind of listeners in it to realise back then when you're kind of speaking about kind of stand-up, this was a 28-day program. This is
Yeah.
a very, very short time
Yeah.
in people's life, and I witnessed it as well and been part of it at times where people who haven't experienced that or seen that or felt that power in sometimes in a group in like a rehab, you know, and that certainly in Abbey Care and stuff like that, and the significant changes that people can do in that short space of time back then, you know, it's like sometimes it's hard to kind of let people know that haven't they seen that or have an idea about that, because I
Absolutely.
can't think many other lines of work out there in the community or anywhere else where that work can get done at that level. Marie,
Yeah.
would that be fair to
Yeah.
say?
I think so. I think it's challenging work, and there has to be an environment that embraces it and says, actually getting people in groups and letting them do them.
Mm-hmm.
Then back then it didn't come without its risks. It still doesn't.
Yeah.
You know, but I firmly believe that if you create a space, and I do believe that if you put people in a room, incredible things happen. But you need to create the environment. And
Mm.
Abbey Care was a wee fledgling company, right?
Mm.
And they're like, what do you want to do? I do that, do that.
Mm.
But interested, because the manager then, Liam, who's still around, he too was interested in therapy. So that was useful to have somebody that had an interest, and a personal interest, but also a professional interest. And that filtered through. I mean, we'll not talk about the building and stuff. I still hear from people that were in.
Yes.
It's down in Ayrshire and
Ayrshire.
Brown Hill House, and they still say, "Oh, remember that day with no water? Remember that day the window fell out?" I mean, you wouldn't believe it, but it was such a beautiful, really inclusive environment. Because it was wanting.
Aye.
The environment was wanting. The environment was wounded.
Mm-hmm.
The house was, beaten and battered and didn't know how to, to get out of that. So there was something in that. I used to say, "Oh, these walls feel you and you feel the walls," and make those kind of analogies with what it's like to be this building and what it's like to be you. That seems a bit, I hear myself saying that, but I understand that, Eddie.
Totally.
I understand that the environment is really important, and it's not about shiny floors or, big TVs. It's much more about atmosphere and conditions and expectations and care.
So 14 years, Mary,
I know,
you spent
14 years.
you spent in that, seen a lot of changes, three different buildings. You
Three
know, you
different
had
buildings.
Dalry, Murdiston Castle, then currently at Erskine with big TVs and shiny floors and stuff like that as well. But there's also that aspect, and still ongoing, obviously, like, where you brought that stuff through those three different buildings as well and passed it on to people like myself, to try and kind of follow suit, you know, and witness the work that you do and go into groups with you and feel that as well, you know, and kind of try and aspire to keep that kind of model going, because every different rehab has got a different
Absolutely.
philosophy, a different approach, a different
Absolutely.
feel. And that there was always something about Abacare that I felt going there, coming for working in another rehab, going to Abacare, and it was more doing that kind of way you're talking about, group work, therapy,
Yep.
a closeness as well, because it was a smaller company, wasn't it? You know,
Absolutely.
maybe smaller group of people and stuff. It's certainly along that kind of line, along with recovery models
Yeah.
that we believe in as
Yeah.
well, but certainly,
Absolutely. The 12-step model has always been at the forefront,
yeah,
and it sits so beautifully with CBT. There's no
totally.
conflict. There's no conflict. There's no how does that fit with that. It's, you know, it definitely is conducive. And so you had the best of both worlds.
Aye.
You know, an abstinence-based program that could explain itself away through the 12-step program, but also that, you know, bringing the therapeutic values and that therapeutic approach to wellness,
Yeah,
hope, the truth that, you know, we have expectations of you. I remember saying this to the health minister, and she was, I think you might have been in the
Aye,
room when
was
that
there.
happened, and she was
Yeah.
really moved by it
Yeah, that's
because,
right.
and to this day, it's how I treat, it's how I've always treated people. It's like, you've got to believe that they've got the resources to get well,
Yeah.
because I don't have the resources to get them well. So why we in this room if you don't? So it's that I come for that place where I really believe that people get well, can get well, and can maintain it. But that's the hard part. I understand that that's the hard part. But if you're working with people who believe that they can make a difference, and they believe that these individuals who work in groups can help each other, so that mutual aid approach,
Mhm.
but also that they can stand up as an important individual who matters, who counts. And it's a big ask. And I know how, when I'm saying that out loud, I always wonder how that's received, but it's my truth.
Yeah.
I really believe, I know it's possible. I've lived it.
Mhm.
I've lived it through my working life, and people can and do change. But the variables need to change. I'm no, listen, I can be hard edge.
Mhm.
People call me, you know, I've been called a Rottweiler.
Yeah.
But that's not what works.
Yeah.
It's not. It works for some people in that you just tell me what to do, right? Okay, you know nothing, do what you're told. I quite like that idea,
Yeah.
but it's in the short term.
That becomes compliance, though, doesn't it?
So there
Maybe.
you are. You become dependent.
Yeah.
So we create another dependency. I really appreciate, and of course, because I work it, the therapeutic approach for me is right now, and I kind of see that changing, is the best approach.
Totally.
You know, and it evolves, and it can be with other ideas. It's not, oh, we only do this, you know, we only talk nice to people. Do we?
Yeah.
Oh, really? You know?
So people from the outside looking in, you know, like, who maybe not experienced it, that was maybe the kind of view, isn't it? You get in there and you get all your needs met and get what you want and stuff like that. And as I said earlier, just through me kind of getting into Abbey Care, you know, and having an understanding, kind of 12-step recovery model, then starting to witness that, you know, and you spoke about how compatible it is along with the 12-step recovery model with CBT and stuff like that. And we've got our gathering coming up next month, and David Best is going to be speaking at that, who's a professor of addiction, and he speaks about that. The most successful recovery model is the 12-step recovery model, but in tandem with CBT, it takes it even more higher. I mean, that's a fact.
And he's not alone in that thought and that idea. He's really not.
Yeah.
You know, we know it. We know that that some of that hard edge, here's my advice, you know, that comes with people who are passionate about their own sobriety.
Yeah.
I got sober and I'm going to tell you how to get sober. That goes a long, long way, Eddie,
Totally.
without a doubt. sometimes we just need to be told what to do. And you hear that, don't you? In the very fragile beginnings, a sobriety, forget recovery, in sobriety, just do what you're told.
Yeah.
Because it'll keep you safe, it'll make you feel safe. But don't forget, you too have a voice and you have opinions, and that's the other side of it.
Yeah.
It's about you, sure, do what you're told because you don't know an alternative, but don't forget that you'll come to a realisation that, oh, this fits with me, or parts of it fit. And,
Yeah.
and you're well within your rights to state that for yourself. In fact, that's recovery.
Yeah, totally. Well, that's it. That's like an individual's recovery, isn't it? You know,
Absolutely.
and it's so important, those underlying issues, isn't it? You know, you can speak with your kind of supports and recovery meetings and touch on those areas, but certainly, you know, for a lot of people who are kind of long-term addicts with trauma and stuff, you know, there's going to come a point where you need to go and see somebody in therapy and really get
and do that exploratory work. That you know, one of the best questions is why me, and of course it's always met with, well, why not you?
Aye.
Let's start there.
Yeah.
Let's start there. And that shining, I like Gabon Matty does it so well. I know he's the kind of front runner in Instagram and all that stuff just now, but actually he's been around a long time, and he's very, very knowledgeable about addiction. He's got a lot of personal experience, professional experience, and but he's, you know, he's of that ilk as well, that it's not the addiction that's that once you've stopped, but let's now the work begins.
Yeah.
Here it is. So that's, what is that? That's what I was saying. It's symptomatic of other things. Is this a symptom of something? You know, we meet people who say, but I had a great upbringing and I've definitely not had any trauma. And say, what was it like in your addiction? So it's not necessarily childhood trauma, but how do you survive active addiction without being traumatized?
Totally.
So it's not about, you know, it's not always about overly searching for stuff. It's not there. But, you know, we're fragile animals, Eddie. And I'm sure if you're dumped with your boyfriend or something, you're not traumatised. People go, oh, it was traumatising. We don't really mean that. But actually, human beings are fragile.
Yeah.
And when we don't get what we need, that just adds to our vulnerability. And then if we can't handle our vulnerability, then we look for strategies to cope.
It just keeps running away
and
from
there it
us.
goes.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
Marie, we're pushed for time here. So just before we end up, I'm going to ask you earlier on about 3 significant songs throughout your life.
No, you threw it at me.
I just dropped it on you 5 minutes before the show. But so the first one you told me was A Wonderful World by Louis Armstrong. Tell us for a wee minute about how that's significant.
Well, first of all, it's significant to me because, well, I just think it's one of the most beautiful songs ever written. It's so simple. And my attitude is, I find it really moving. I think the world is beautiful. I think human beings are wounded.
Yeah.
But I love that idea, that aspect. It's one of my funeral songs anyway. I've got many, but that's one of them. Because my experience of people is that people do stop and say hello, and a lot of the time when they say how you doing, they really do care how you're doing. But we live in a fast world that we go, I am good, I'm fine. You know, we all do that. But that song grounds me back into, you know, the smiles on the faces of people passing by, and that noticing, that taking. When I hear the words of that song, I go, there's the stuff that matters. It's back to that. It's not the shiny floors or the big tellies. It's the, oh wow. You know, I really love it when somebody smiles at me before I've smiled at them. I go, oh, that's right, I can smile back. So it's that, it grounds me, that song grounds me, and it's emotive. You know, I find it really, but I think it's full of hope as well.
Thank you. Next one, we've got James Morrison in Undiscovered.
Yeah. So the simple line. I often use that in group, actually, if we're doing any kind of music therapy or if I'm making it up as I go along, as we do in therapeutic situations. That idea that I'm not lost, I'm just undiscovered.
Okay.
And that sits for me in addiction. I'm like, people feel lost, and it's not our right to say to them, you're not lost.
Yeah.
But if you say to them, well, what parts of you are undiscovered? And I use it a lot because the sentiment of that, just that line, I'm not lost, just undiscovered. I'm like, wow, if that's no hope, what is that? What is it? And then being brave enough to look at, to really to just explore the possibility of the undiscovered you.
Beautiful. And finally, Nat King Cole, smile though your heart is aching.
I know. I don't know why I
You're
was
an
saying
old
that to you.
romantic,
I'm an old
Mary, aren't
romantic.
you?
And old songs. I'm like, where did that come from? But that song was played at my mum's funeral, and my mum organised her own funeral because that was the kind of person she was. And we didn't know she'd organised, but right down to the songs. She sent my son-in-law out to buy Rod Stewart's CD because she heard him singing it. And it's an old song, I think. I was told by somebody in here that it was Nat King Cole. And so there's that. So it's significant because I thought, oh gosh, that so sums up my mum's attitude, because she wouldn't let people in. It was hard for her to let people in. So she would smile through adversity. She would smile when it was tough. And the greater good for my mum was always other people. So,
Okay.
Yeah, I'm better than okay. So that's really important. But also that our ability, it reminds me of the human ability to hide.
Yeah.
And sometimes it's resilience, when we smile, people smile back at us. And that can, if you're hurting inside and somebody smiles at you, it's the same thing as what I said before.
Yeah.
It's that, for me, that's human connection.
Totally.
And it's just, it speaks a lot to me, that song, from a hiding position and that the human condition to hide. That I didn't expose myself, a bit where we started actually, me saying to you, I feel a bit exposed. But smile though your heart is aching. Smile even though it's breaking. But it's that hope again. Well, that's interesting because these are all about hope for me. It's that, but the sun is going to shine. You don't get to control the weather, the sun will shine. And it's that metaphor I find to be true. It's true in my life.
Amazing. 3 great choices there on 3 highly significant songs in your area. So just before we round it up, Marie, your career, looking back in it, for me, listening to it, I was really intrigued, in a lot of kind of patterns and a lot of, it kept coming up, where, I don't know whether it was maybe trust or space to develop things, being an important part of your development, and having that kind of bigger picture and moving forward. How would you kind of summarise your career all that way back to the 17-year-old chap in the door? Yeah.
Opportunistic. I'm quite gamey. Or I used to be quite gamey. I'm less gamey. The older you get, the less gamey you become. But my dad used to say, you'll get a piece at any door. That statement. And it was like, and I used to think, well, if you don't ask, how do you'll not get it? So as a young girl, I understood that.
Right.
Yeah. And so taking healthy risks is what I done in my career. And I was absolutely privileged to work with a lot of amazing people who came for the same philosophy, which is people are good. People are good. We're no daft, we're no naive. We know that the world's a really dangerous place right now for a lot of people. But actually, at the very core, people are good. And I've been privileged to work with people all my life. I was 17 till now. So that's 50 years.
Never.
Nearly 50 years.
Amazing.
Yeah, it is amazing. And I genuinely mean that. I don't know if that sounds all a bit woolly, but actually,
No,
I genuinely feel blessed. I've had an amazing career, and it's been reliant on other people being along on the same road as me, at least some of the time.
Thank you very much, Marie. You survived it.
I did survive.
It was amazing to have you on the show. Amazing to hear your journey. And thank you so much on a personal level for all the kind of encouragement and guidance throughout my career as well. And thanks for being a friend and coming along here this evening as well, and being willing to support us and continue to help people with your message. So thank you so much.
But I'm sailing down the river alone, still trying to find my way back home. And I don't believe in magic. Life is automatic, and I don't